think I was actually eager to see who I would become at the end of this trip. So now my idea was to burn all the way through Europe. I had this idea that I would, bike fast, bam, 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 and I would almost see like a trace of fire behind my bike, right? And I would go fast, minimalistic style. I wouldn't have so many things. No big tent, no kind of nothing to cook with and these things, right? To keep it super simple, lightweight, minimalistic, and go as fast as possible. So who would this like Eric guy? I was this person before. I wanted to do this thing, and I wanted to see how I would become afterwards. And also, in a sense, I wanted to see if I still had the urge for adventure, the urge for kind of pushing my physical and mental boundaries. So many different reasons why I actually wanted to bike all the way through Europe. Alone, like solo.
My plan was to bike from our place in Torrevieja, south of Alicante in southeast Spain, and continue north along the coast up to Barcelona, where I have my relatives, 2 cousins and my uncle. I would stay in Barcelona for 1 night and 1 full day to rest and recover, and then I would continue up to the French border. My very first challenge would be to see and feel how my body reacted to several days on the bike. I was especially concerned for my back and knees, where I've had issues before. I also figured that if I managed to bike all across Spain and everything held up, that I would be able to bike all the way to Sweden. If everything went according to plan, I would cross into France, and my idea was to go as fast north as possible. That basically meant to bike along the coast in South France and then go straight up north towards the city of Lyon as fast as possible. Based on earlier experiences, I knew that the stretch from South France towards the north and the area of Lyon was pretty flat and straightforward. After Lyon, and as fast as possible, I wanted to cross into Germany. Close to the border with France in Germany, I also had a few friends, and my plan was to spend some time with them for maybe 1 or 2 full days to rest and recover. From southwest Germany, I would head straight up north, and my goal was to hit Flensburg, close to the Danish border. I would spend maybe 2 days in Denmark, and then I would bike all the way up to Fredrikshamn at its northern tip, where I would take the ferry and cross over to Sweden. The full distance, as I planned it, would be about 3,200 kilometers, and I would do the full distance in about 3 weeks or 21 days, averaging about 150k a day. I carefully selected the equipment I wanted to bring, and I will show you a few shots. I will mention a few of the items that I deem especially important. On the top right, on this very first photo, you can for instance see some of the basic tools that I brought, especially several inner tubes. Here, I just want to show you the large bike bag, which I place on my saddle post, and it's in this one that I will bring most of my gear, especially clothes. And here I have my secret weapon, my aftershocks, which is a special kind of headphones. Instead of having a regular pair of headphones which blocks sound from, for instance, traffic, here the sound goes straight through your skull bone using something called bone conduction. In other words, I can listen to music, podcasts, or whatever I want, while also biking and being aware of what's going on around me when cycling. In a similar fashion, I brought a JBL speaker, a small one which I wanted to place somewhere on the bike so I could listen to music without blocking any other external sounds. My plan was to have both my aftershocks and my JBL speaker and use them whenever I wanted to. From earlier experience, I knew how monotonous and mentally tough it can be when you bike hour after hour, only listening to your own thoughts or nothing at all. It can be a bit mental at times. Also, the experience of using a speaker rather than a pair of headphones such as the aftershocks, it's quite different. The experience of using a speaker is more similar to going to a concert, listening to your favorite music booming out over the landscape. It can really be quite intense. On the top left, I made a circle around all the clothes I would bring and a first aid kit. For instance, the only pair of shoes I got apart from my biking shoes are my Vibram 5 fingers. And at the bottom of the circle, I got my sleeping mattress and my bivy bag. That is, I decided not to bring a tent of any sort, as I wanted to go as minimalistic as possible. Fully loaded, this is what my bike actually looks like. There's nothing special about the bike itself. It's a road bike, it's a Bianchi, and it's around 6 or 7 years old. In the front I have a bag under the handlebars, and that is where I stored my sleeping bag. And it's also where I had extra food, such as bananas for instance. In the middle I have a frame bag, that is where I kept all tools, extra inner tubes, extra lights, rain gear, snacks, and extra protection like gloves. I also kept all electronics there, like batteries and cables. In the back, and in the largest bag, that is where I stored all clothes and a small towel. On top of that same bag, I put my JBL speaker, a cap, extra food, and some rain protection gear if I needed to. Finally, and this part is very important, as I wanted to travel as minimalistic as possible, naturally I did not want to bring actual physical maps with me on my journey. Instead, I opted in to get the best GPS device I could find. When I planned the adventure, I only initially sketched a route from Spain all the way to Sweden, but I did not go into detail on how every specific day would look like. Instead, I decided to rely on Garmin to do that work for me. The idea was to always plan one day ahead on each day on the road, and just making sure that specific day correlated with my overall plan. What I wanted to do was to add a destination point in Garmin and let Garmin decide which road was the best one to take. And importantly, in Garmin it's possible to ask the device to avoid, for instance, highways or any other roads that might be unsuitable for cycling. Here I'm showing you my setup. On the right hand side you can see my Garmin device, and just below my Garmin there's a larger phone case. With this setup I used primarily my Garmin for navigation, but I could always adjust the route a bit, just checking my phone at the same time. So we have some action going here. We are about 60k from the target for today, day number 1. And it's a very exciting moment. Paul got a flat tire. It's very tense. He's focusing. You know, it's hot, 30 degrees, high pulse, high heart rate. We don't know if we can make it. Food is running out, short on water. Paul is half dead. He looks strong though, he looks strong actually. Yeah, short of motivation, giving up, you know. I can hear him, you know, praise the Lord all the time and help me God.
It's only flat at the bottom.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel despondent, like a failure.
Yeah, like a failure.
But I'm English, so it gives me something to complain about, which is good.
Yeah. Okay, meanwhile I will hide in the shade.
Yeah.
And yeah, but he's in the sun, so In Spain, it's only like Englishmen and crazy dogs that are out in the sun, right? That's like a proverb. Yeah. Yesterday we did like I did 150, I think.
Yeah.
More or less, K. Day number 1, right? But I didn't do it alone. I had some great companionship with Paul Webb. So I got to know Paul at the cycling club Grupo La Feña in Playa Flamenca. So that's pretty cool. And he wanted to join me on day number 1. So now we're having some breakfast, we're drinking some coffee, having some power shots, and getting all fired up and feeling super motivated. And Paul looks super excited. So, Paul, okay, here's Paul. Let's do it like this.
Hi.
Say hi to the audience.
Hi.
Cool. So let me ask you, Paul, like, why did you want to join on the first day?
Well, I'd like to have done more. I'd like to have at least got to the border of France and then got a train back, but circumstances, work, family, and a TIE appointment made that not possible.
Things happen. So what do you think about me biking 350 K or 3,500 kilometers to Sweden? Makes sense, or?
It's a very sensible endeavour. It's crazy, but take it one country at a time, one day at a time, and you might just be all right.
So crazy in a good sense.
Crazy in a good sense, because it's good to stretch yourself. It's good to do the challenge.
Yeah.
But it's almost too much for me to think about.
So Paul, like, why cycling? What do you see in cycling? Why are you cyclist? Deep question, huh?
Years ago, my mum and dad divorced when I was about 7. My dad moved back to the area, but it was about 20 kilometers from where I lived, and my dad popped over when I was 12 and brought me a second-hand bicycle. Okay. So I used to do the trip to there and back, and thought it was like riding to the end of the world, and that was it.
It's good stuff. And imagine, like, maybe the audience, they kind of feel trapped or stuck or something, or they have, I don't know, anxiety, whatever, So what would you like to say to them from your perspective, from a cyclist perspective, or
Get a bike.
Get a bike, number 1.
Number 1.
That's number 1.
Number 2 is ride the bike.
Number 2, ride a bike.
And I think it really helps you to sort things out in your own head. And if you're suffering with anxiety, 9 times out of 10, maybe even more, a lot of the things that people worry about never come to anything.
Yeah.
So you need to keep that close to your head, close to your mind, that most of what you're worrying about will not even manifest itself. So give yourself a day off. Give yourself
a day off and listen to the advice of Paul Webb. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Good
Boom.
stuff. Thank you. Boom.
So on day 2, 3, 4, and 5, I left Paul, so he went back, and I continued on my journey. I was still in Spain. It was still like the first phase of the trip. I still felt insecure. I still felt very hesitant if I would actually accomplish this thing. My idea was to bike all the way through Spain and see when I get to Barcelona and my relatives in Barcelona, I can sort of figure out if I wanted to continue or if I wanted to abandon the whole thing and not continue anymore. So on day 2 to 5, I didn't take many photos, actually, not many videos, like almost nothing at all. because I felt insecure. I didn't know if I would actually go through it at all. So I documented everything. I was kind of in my own head, my own bubble. I wasn't kind of experiencing the trip. I wasn't in the adventure zone. I was kind of in the being a hesitant cyclist zone. So eventually I got to Barcelona and I stayed with my cousins and my uncle for just one day of rest and recovery. Kind of figuring out, okay, so what's the next step? Where do I want to go on day 7? Taking it easy, relaxing. But just for one day, because I still wanted to push on. And that's what I decided as well. So I will head all the way to the Pyrenees, and when I get to the French border, let's see what happens at the French-Spanish border. And see how I feel. Up until then, I actually felt pretty okay. The weather was nice. It was 30-35 degrees Celsius, like a blue sky every day, up in the mountains and everything, like a big adventure. A good few days. Just the idea of actually biking 205 kilometers from Barcelona all the way into France in one single go in one day, 200 kilometers. That's pretty, I would say that's pretty, it's a strong effort. It's a strong effort. I pushed myself, but I also showed me something to myself, right? I proved something for myself. I proved that, okay, I can actually do this thing. And it was during the same part of the trip, like the Spanish part, at the end of that part, from those 205k, that I actually decided, okay, I will aim for this and I will go all the way to Sweden. I won't give up. I won't give in. I will do this thing. Now that I've done Spain for a few days, 5, 6, 7 days, and one day of rest, I proved to myself that I'm capable. And that's a pretty cool feeling.